Your face moves more than you realize. According to researchers at the Salk Institute in California, the human face contains 43 muscles capable of producing over 10,000 unique configurations. Every smile you give at work, every nod in a conversation, every calm expression you hold when you are falling apart inside is a choice made by that muscular system in fractions of a second. But the moment you are alone, those 43 muscles stop taking orders from your social brain. And if someone ever caught what they do next, they would know everything about you. There is a psychologist named Paul Ekman who spent decades studying the human face.
In the 1960s, he traveled to remote tribes in Papua New Guinea, groups of people who had never seen television, never read a magazine, never been exposed to Western culture. He showed them photographs of facial expressions and asked them to identify the emotions.
They got them right. Every single time. Happiness, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, surprise. These faces were the same everywhere on Earth. Ekman proved that facial expressions are not learned. They are built into us. Your face is running software that was installed before you were born, and you cannot delete it. You can only try to override it. And most of the time, you fail. You are watching Mind Unlocked, where we decode the hidden patterns of the human mind. Here is what Ekman discovered next, and this is the part that should unsettle you. He found that even when people try to hide an emotion, it leaks out on their face in what he called micro-expressions. These are flashes of real feeling that last less than half a second. A flicker of contempt during a compliment. A tiny tightening around the eyes when someone says they are fine. You cannot fake these. They happen too fast for conscious control. Ekman trained FBI agents and security professionals to spot them because they are more reliable than any lie detector. Your mouth can say anything. Your face, in that unguarded fraction of a second, cannot lie. Now think about what happens when there is no one around at all. No reason to perform. The sociologist Irving Goffman wrote about this in his 1959 book The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. He argued that all human interaction is a performance. You have a front stage, which is the version of you that others see, and a backstage, where the mask comes off. Goffman described everyday life like theater. You dress for the role, you rehearse your lines, you manage impressions constantly. But backstage, alone in your car after a hard conversation, sitting on the edge of your bed at 2 a.m, standing in front of the mirror when no one else is home, your face finally relaxes into whatever it has been holding back all day. That face is the real one. And here is the part that gets personal. You have seen this in yourself. Think about the last time you walked out of a room full of people and your face just dropped. Not because something bad happened in that moment, but because you finally stopped performing. That heaviness you felt was not new. It had been there the whole time. You were just too busy managing your expression to notice it. Ekman documented this pattern in his research on emotional suppression. People who habitually hide their feelings do not make those feelings go away. The emotions stay active in the body. Heart rate stays elevated. Cortisol keeps flowing. The face might look calm to others, but the nervous system underneath is working overtime. You pay a physical price every time you force a smile you do not feel. There is a specific expression Ekman identified that most people never notice in themselves but others pick up on instinctively. He called it the Duchenne smile, named after the 19th century French neurologist Guillaume Duchenne, who studied the mechanics of facial muscles. A real smile activates two muscle groups, the zygomatic major, which pulls the corners of your mouth up, and the orbicularis oculi, which crinkles the skin around your eyes. A fake smile only uses the mouth. The eyes stay flat. You have seen this hundreds of times without knowing what you were looking at. That coworker who smiles at you but something feels off. That friend who says they are happy for you but their eyes do not move. You were reading a Duchenne gap without having a name for it. Your brain already knows the difference between a real face and a performed one. It just processes it as a feeling, a gut sense that something is not quite right. What makes this more unsettling is that the face you wear when no one is watching does not just reflect your emotions. It shapes them. Research in what psychologists call the facial feedback hypothesis suggests that your expressions actually influence how you feel. If you furrow your brow, you start to feel more frustrated. If you let your face go slack and heavy, your mood drops further. This means that the unguarded face you wear alone in your room is not just a mirror of your inner state. It is reinforcing it. You sit alone, your face falls into sadness, and the sadness deepens because your face told your brain to feel more of it. It becomes a loop. Fritz Strack and his colleagues at the University of Würzburg published a well-known study in 1988 where participants held a pen in their teeth, forcing a smile shape, or held it with their lips, preventing a smile. The group forced into the smile position rated cartoons as funnier. Their faces literally changed what they found amusing. Edward Tronick demonstrated just how deeply we depend on reading faces from the very beginning of life. In 1975, at the University of Massachusetts Boston, Tronick designed what became known as the still face experiment. Mothers were asked to interact normally with their infants and then suddenly go completely expressionless. Within seconds, the babies became visibly distressed. They reached out, cooed, smiled, doing everything they could to get a response. When the mother's face stayed blank, the infants turned away, cried, and lost postural control. They could not tolerate a face that gave them nothing. Tronick showed that facial responsiveness is not a social nicety. It is a biological expectation wired into humans from birth. When someone close to you goes blank, even for a moment, your nervous system registers it as a signal that something is wrong. This is why you feel the air shift in a room when a person's expression does not match the conversation, even if nobody says a word about it. In 1969, Ekman and his colleague Wallace Friesen conducted a study comparing Japanese and American university students watching films of surgical procedures. When the students were alone, both groups showed the same facial expressions of disgust and distress. But when an authority figure sat in the room, the Japanese students masked their negative expressions with polite smiles while the American students continued to react openly. Ekman and Friesen called these culturally learned controls display rules. Your culture teaches you which emotions are acceptable to show and which must be tucked away, and you absorb these lessons so early that they feel automatic by adulthood. The gap between your private face and your public face is not just personal. It is shaped by every social norm you grew up inside, every family rule about which feelings were allowed at the dinner table, every unspoken code in your school or neighborhood about what strength is supposed to look like and where vulnerability is permitted. In 2010, researcher David Havis at the University of Wisconsin measured what happens when the face physically cannot move. He tested participants who had received Botox injections that partially paralyzed the corrugator supercilii, the small muscle above the eyebrow responsible for frowning. Havis found that these participants took measurably longer to read and comprehend sentences describing sad or angry situations compared to a control group. By limiting what their faces could express, the Botox had slowed down their capacity to process the corresponding emotions at a cognitive level. Your face is not just a display screen projecting what you already feel. It is part of the circuit that generates emotional experience. When you hold it in a frozen performance for hours each day, you are not only hiding what you feel. You are dulling your ability to fully feel it. The face you make when no one is watching may be the only time that circuit runs uninterrupted, and that is exactly why it reveals so much about who you really are underneath the role you play. Subscribe to Mind Unlocked. Next video, the one word that predicts whether someone respects you.